Hey guys, welcome back. At this point, we know how to write and execute a MapReduce program. If you remember, in the Dissecting MapReduce Components lesson, we briefly talked about Combiner at the very end of the lesson. In this lesson, let's talk about some interesting concepts about combiners. Let's start with asking what is a combiner. Combiner is an optional program which will be executed at the map phase after the execution of the mapper on the map output. Take a look at this slide. Here we are trying to calculate the maximum closing price of each stock symbol from our stock dataset. Let's take the output of symbol ABC from mapper 1. Mapper 1 processed 3 records for symbol ABC. Hence, it has 3 closing prices for ABC, 60, 50, and 111. Now, without the combiner, all 3 closing prices will be sent to the reduce, and reducer will compare all 3 values to come up with the maximum closing price. Now the question is, do we have to send all 3 values to the reducer? The answer is no. Since we are trying to calculate the maximum closing price, all we need to send from mapper 1 to the reducer is the value 111. Hence 111 is the maximum closing price value of the 3 values 50, 60, and 111. Using a combiner is beneficial because by not sending all 3 values, we will be reducing the amount of data we'll be trying to send to the reducer significantly. And also, reducer does not have to deal with a lot of records, which improves performance at the reducer side. So there are 2 key benefits: decreasing the network usage and improving the performance on the reduce phase. Now, if you think about it, by using a combiner, we are doing a mini reduce phase on the map phase itself. Look at the input to the combiner and the output from the combiner. The input to the combiner is the symbol with a list of closing prices, exactly the same as the input to the reducer. And the output from the combiner is the symbol and the maximum closing price, exactly the same as the reducer output. So in this case, we can actually use our reducer program as the combiner. So to use combiner in your program, all you have to say is set the combiner class to use using the set combiner class on the Java object. In this case, we'll provide the reducer class as the combiner, so the reducer and the combiner are one and the same. The combiner and the reducer need not be the same class in all instances. In some case, you might want to perform a different operation in your combiner. In that case, you can write your own combiner program. In such an instance, you have to keep 2 things in mind. The combiner that you're going to write should always implement the reducer interface. The second important thing is the input and the output key value types of the combiner should match the key value types of the map output. Now, if you look back at the illustration again, it will make sense. Take a look. The input to the combiner is the output from the mapper. So the input type of the combiner must match the output type of the mapper. Next, the reducer expects the input types to be the output key value types from the mapper. Hence, combiner's output key value type should match the mapper's output key value types. Makes sense, correct? Now, an important question. We ask this question often in interviews because we have seen developers reusing the reducers as combiners in instances where they shouldn't be doing so. So here is the question. Can you use your reducer as a combiner in all cases? The answer is it depends on your use case. In this illustration, we are calculating the maximum closing price, so we can use the reducer class as the combiner and the output will be the same. Let's say we are calculating the average closing price. In that case, we'll be producing a different output with and without the combiner. So we cannot use the same reducer as the combiner in that case. Take a look. ABC has 5 records in our illustration. 3 records from mapper 1 and 2 records from mapper 2. So to calculate the average closing price of symbol ABC, we have to sum up all 5 closing prices and divide the sum by 5, which will give us 70.4. Now, if we introduce a combiner in the map phase, the combiner will calculate the average closing price on each mapper's output. If you look at the illustration, mapper 1 has processed 3 records for ABC and mapper 2 has processed 2 records for ABC. So for symbol ABC in mapper 1, the combiner will calculate the average closing price for 3 records for ABC and end up with value 73.66 from mapper 1. And similarly, at mapper 2, it will calculate the average closing price for two records for symbol ABC and will end up with value 65.5. Now the input to the reducer will be 73.66 and 65.5 for the symbol ABC. And the reducer will calculate the average of the two, which will become 69.58. Which is not the correct average closing price for symbol ABC. As we know already, the correct value is 70.4. So whenever you decide to use your reducer as a combiner, you have to ask this question to yourself. Will my output be the same with and without the use of the combiner? If the answer is yes, only then you can use your reducer as a combiner. That is it. So to summarize, in this lesson, we saw the benefits of the combiner, and also we saw the programming constraints we need to have in place if you decide to write your own combiner. And finally, we saw when to use and when not to use your reducer as your combiner. With that, let's wrap this lesson. See you in the next lesson.